This episode of the Oh No 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 podcast is sponsored by Dynamic Industrial Services, the rope access specialists. Every week we talk about the Rovers' latest attempts to climb the SPFL ladder, but sometimes even a ladder won't reach. DIS are specialists in working at height, offering maintenance, inspection, repair and more, right across Scotland. So if you need a rope access specialist and you want a premiership service, visit dynamicindustrialservices.co.uk to find out more.
Hello and welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast, where we're here for a very quick fire recap of the summer signings, along with a small review of a rather dull pre-season friendly that kicked us off along in Meffel. I'm your host today, Robbie Weir, and joining my skeleton crew, the famous duos of McCartney and Lennon, who else? Abbott and Costello, I don't know, Rick and Morty, Stam Stanton and goals against Dunfermline. We've got Mr. Scott Fleming. How you doing, Scott?
Yeah, really good, Robbie. And it's not quite got to the start of this season, but it's always good when you get the first pre-season game underway and it means that you know it's close. So, yeah, looking forward to the next couple of weeks and getting started.
It's a staple of the summer when you're going to a ground like Bayview and they've got their drugs are for mug advertising board. You've got people in hoodies and shorts, and the trialists are aplenty. So yeah, it's good to get back yesterday. What we'll do is we'll just go through a recap of the re-signings and the new signings firstly, and then we'll have a quick, very, very quick recap of the game because there wasn't much that was to talk about in that fixture. So we'll start off where we left off before. The first re-signing that we had was Liam Dick. So he's came back for another extension of his contract. Obviously, there was a social media fanfare that always arrives with that. The innuendos that come with that, but just a good option to have, do you think, there, Scott?
Yeah, I think Dicko's pretty much steady Eddie when it comes to fullback in the Championship. My only worry when it came to last season was when we were really starting to motor and go for the title with United was, will Dicko actually be... It sounds harsh, but would he be good enough to be at the top end of the Championship, because he'd been playing low-end Championship, League One, basically his whole career when he came to us. And, I mean, he has gotten better under Murray, I think, but and definitely got better on the ball. But I do think that I was happy enough when he signed on, because I think at the end of the day, any new signing's a gamble, so you know what you're going to get with Dicko. So I think it was kind of a safe bit of business on the club to go, look, he's definitely not done a bad job for us. I think he's, as I say, he's a very 7 out of 10 most weeks. He'll never do anything too flashy, and he just gets the job done. So I think at the end of the day, I was happy enough for him to be here.
Yeah, I think that's a sort of common sentiment among our fans. For me, I look back to when we had Rory McEwen, and a lot of the time players in that position can be a position where their hand kind of gets forced by who's next to them, and it's not been disrespectful to before, but he did have Scott Brown playing alongside him a lot of the last season, and even before that, like you had like Tom Lang and you had Ryan Nolan playing the season before that, and Kyle Benedictus even before that. So he's a bit long in the tooth now, Liam Dick, where he's had a good few seasons with us. He has improved over time, I would say. I think that's a fair comment to make. But now you've got Fordyce, Paul Hanlon and Ewan Murray next to him. So those are three really good centre-backs who can play as part of a back three as well as part of a back four. And to have Lewis Stevenson on top, and we'll come on to Lewis in a little bit, I think just adds that extra dimension so that we've got that. Because I think before you always knew Liam Dick was your left back, and we've been very fortunate in that we've never had to really utilise an extra left back during this whole time here. He's always been very consistent. I can't really recall him having any injuries. And also as well, it keeps our fans in West Ayrshire very, very happy as well. That small supporters group that we've got down there. So he was the first signing, a very familiar face. The second signing was a very unfamiliar face, and I know that we kind of joked about it before on the podcast that we did about the signings, but Kai Montague's signed a deal with the Rovers coming in from East Kilbride. That we'd sort of speculated a bit before whether it was just sort of Mick Kennedy playing to the gallery and sort of trying to hype this lad up, but he's obviously John Potter and Ian Murray have backed him and said, you're good enough for this level of football. So what did you make of that deal coming through? A young lad coming through from East Kilbride and their academy.
Yeah, I think to me it seemed like a deal of, right, we just released quite a few young lads, and I think the worry was for the club going forward is, and I think the fan base kind of started to question it when we were releasing all the youngsters, was what sort of youth are we going to have? Is it just going to be Callum Hanna? And whilst you would understand of the club going for experience and wanting to try and get out of the league in terms of getting up to the Premiership, I still think you always have to have some sort of youth in your setup, because at the end of the day, we've given, I think, Montague a 2-year deal, and this year will be purely, I could see him probably being with the squad until about maybe October, November, and then I think we might send him out on loan. I think it'll be a case of, he's used to being in a sort of professional setup with East Kilbride in terms of playing for 3 points on a Saturday. And I would say the Lowling League, actually, in the last 2-3 years, has actually become really competitive, and it's actually a decent league now. So it's good that he's already been exposed to that level. But I think if I'm being honest, I don't see him breaking into this team just now. And I think the lad's only like 17, 18. I can see him, as I say, a couple of months was kind of what Callum Hanna did last season, get used to full-time football, in with the likes of Hanlon, Stevenson, Sean Byrne, like all these guys that have played Premier League football and everything, that if he can start learning off of these guys and then go out and play full-time football or part-time football, even if it's in League 1 or League 2, I think it's a good bit of business yet again from us.
Yeah, I'd fully agree with that. And I think Ian Murray alluded to that in his post-match interview at East Fife, where he said that you've got like guys like Kai Montague and Lewis Gibson coming in, and they're very, very young. They're going to be raw, but they're going to have the talent there, which John Potter's clearly got an eye for. But to come in and then you're automatically off the bat, you've got 2 players that have got over 1,000 appearances for Hibs combined. That's a huge asset, and that's just going to give you that degree of professionalism, and you would hope that you can look at those lads that have gone out and won Scottish Cups, Scotland caps, etc., and that you can take quite a lot just from them in terms of a footballing knowledge. So yeah, I've got a lot of high hopes for Montague based on what I've heard, and I know that he was tracked by Motherwell and clubs down south, so I don't think there's smoke without fire there, and keen to see how he gets on. And he's learning from really good players in his own position as well. You think about the likes of Sam Stanton, Dylan Easton, even Callum Smith, Josh Mullen, those players going forward, Lewis Vaughan, of course. So again, with these guys coming in that are young, the sky's the limit really for them. There's plenty of opportunity for them to progress in the game, and that's good that I always think back to the Dunfermline team that they had when we first got promoted out of the old second division under John McGlynn. And what they'd done the few seasons before is they basically went about clubs like, for instance, Stirling Albion, you had, I think, Airdrie as well, other smaller part-time teams. They were going about basically hoovering up the younger talent that they had, so the likes of Joe Cardle, Stephen Bell. Now, obviously, they've got a lot more game time under their belt, but I think that that's the position that we need to be in. I know that we've spoken on this podcast quite a bit before about being big stack bullies, but I think that's a really, really sound strategy from the club to be getting in, because if not, you leave it a year or two down the line, and then you get the proper big clubs sniffing after these lads, even taking potential punts, clubs like Hibs, Hearts, for example. So yeah, intrigued to see how that one pans out. If he does go out on loan, then I think it's a good opportunity for him to learn, because he's so young that it's incredible that he's going to be coming through. But I think I really hope that he does kick on and he gets plenty of opportunity. And again, we've seen the likes of Dylan Tate and Kieran Bowie come through before, and I think that with these younger lads, the opportunities are there, and they're the ones that need to be forcing them. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Following on from Montague signing, we then got a bit of a surprise announcement, I've got to say, because it wasn't really sort of speculated or confirmed anywhere beforehand. But it was probably one of the best announcement videos I think that you'll see alongside Dylan Easton's, which was the return of Sean Burns. So firstly, what were you making of that bit of fun there, poking fun at Kingsley and Partick Thistle?
Well, yeah, I have to agree. That is definitely... I think that's the best signing video that we've done in the sort of year and a bit that we've had this board and everything with the club. So, no, fair play to them again for topping the Dylan Easton one. But it was funny because I was actually meeting one of my mates, Ali Pilmer, who we went to Germany just recently for the Euros, and I was just at the train station in Hilversum where I live to meet him. And just as we got I met him at the station, that was when the tweet came out. And so straight away we're on our phone going, oh, this is brilliant. Like, and just straight away you could see it's the fact that, as you say, they're bringing in Kingsley and everything as well. And it's just, I did wonder if he wouldn't re-sign, because the rumour was that other clubs were going to offer him a wee bit more than what we were willing to. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all talk. And I think he enjoyed himself so much last season, and he could see he's been in the club, so he knows what it is. And again, for him, is it worth a gamble going somewhere else when he knows how much he enjoyed himself? And I'm sure I've seen somewhere on social media that his girlfriend, fiance, wife, I'm not sure what it is, but she had put saying that she'd never seen him so happy, like, for years. So again, it's stuff like that you don't see away from football, that him and his family seem to be enjoying their sort of time around the Rovers as well. So I'm glad that he's here. And again, 2 years, it's again just good that, again, if he has a good season, somebody's going to have to pay up again if they really want Sean Byrne in their team. But no, I think he's a very solid base in that midfield. And yeah, I think when we've got what we're talking about in our draft thing, we've got arguably 4 to 5 central midfielders that could nearly start in every single team in the division, which is actually quite ridiculous. So, no, really happy to see Sean back again.
Yeah, I don't think that's an exaggeration to say. I felt that it was good. Like you mentioned, his family are clearly very happy here, and I think you could see that after the Partick Thistle game with the penalties, with the players were coming out, and it was him, Dylan Easton, and Josh Mullen have all got young families there, having them out on the pitch, and you could see how much it meant to them, which was great. And I think that sort of vibe comes across in this squad, that you've got that where they do feel happy, they know that their families will be welcomed at Starks Park, and I think that does make a very, very big difference to players and their families, that they're not going to be sort of, because you can see some situations where it becomes very, very brutal between families, getting defensive with the players naturally, which is understandable. You're always going to react that way if someone's hurling abuse at someone that you love. But at the same time, it's positive when you get that environment that they do feel so welcome. But I think as well, Scott, I know it's been touched on before, and it's a cliche of a phrase to use, but he is an absolute Rolls Royce of a midfielder. Like, you could even see that yesterday. We'll come on to that. And I think we saw him getting back to his best towards the sort of playoffs. And I think that for having sort of more defensive-minded midfielders, to have him and Scott Brown on top of Ross Matthews for an extra year as well, just absolutely phenomenal news. It's what we all wanted. As you say, as you'd alluded to, there was seemingly rumours of interest from Livingston and obviously Partick Thistle, which helped us a lot in terms of our announcement video that they had that opportunity. And I'm sure that Sean said exactly who he's going to the club and who'd put offers in. But yeah, I think that it's a really, really good bit of business, very shrewd from the club to get him back in. And I don't think his influence can be understated for Rovers. So I'm very, very happy to see that he's back and signed under a new deal. And then we continued on the sort of more left field signings and unexpected ones, because I think for 3 or 4 in a bounce, we were all saying, right, we know who this is, and then it turned out to be someone completely different, someone that we're going to talk about, the one that we're expecting a bit later on. He comes a bit later in the summer window. But then firstly, a rather surprising move, I've got to say, for 18-year-old winger from Queen of the South, Lewis Gibson, whose dad obviously tormented the Rovers for years. A lot of back and forth with Willie, we've got to say. He never played for Rovers, but again, someone that you always knew you were going to have a tough game with, regardless of what stage of his career he was at, whether he was a 23-year-old winger at Dunfermline or even at Queen of the South. You know that he could still rock up and put in a good performance at right back. So his son has now signed, and Lewis is a very tricky winger. By all accounts, I've heard that he's technically on the ball, he's meant to be really, really good, based on what the Queen of the South fans were saying. They think that he's got a higher ceiling than his dad. So what did you make of him coming in?
Again, pretty happy with bringing in another sort of talented young player. I think Gibson's got more of a chance to be playing in the squad this year than the likes of Montague, purely just to the fact that he's already been exposed to League One football, and by all accounts, again, when I was in Germany, I was speaking to my mate Ali, and he was saying that he's got a really good mate that's a Queen of the South fan, and straight away, as soon as we were announced the signing him, he got a text of that guy saying, "You've got an absolute player, by the way." Like, at 17, he walked into the Queen of the South team and just looked straight away like he was meant to be there. So
that's a bit like as I say, it's a bit like the Bowie and Tate situation, where they kind of just walked into our team at that point because they were just ready. You just again, Kieran Bowie was very raw. He was getting games at the end of that season where we didn't have much to play for. But if you're good enough, you're old enough. That's it, or whatever way that phrase goes.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I think Gibson's actually obviously a different position, but similar to Bowie in the terms of he actually looks big already at the age he is, and so by that all accounts means that he's going to be pretty much fitness wise and strength wise ready to be playing in League One and Championship football, and especially in Scotland. It's really end to end hustle and bustle. You have to be. Everyone says that English leagues are physical, and it is. I would say you probably need a higher level of fitness down in England, but see here, you need to have just a bit of everything when it comes to fitness, a bit of muscle. You have to stick up for yourself. So, I think he'll fit right in. And I mean, we've already seen there was a clip on social media volleying in a ball at training, but the swagger on him after he scored it, you can tell this is Willie Gibson's son straight away. He looks like him, he walks like him, and I hope, obviously, that we get. I think it's 3-year deal we got him for. So I'm hoping that he can really knuckle down and challenge the likes of Mullen and Easton, because that's only going to make them have to work harder if they've got a young whippet trying to take their place from him. So no, happy with this one as well.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of units, I think that I didn't touch on it initially, but with Kai Montague, he's a bit of a unit as well. I thought that he looked very physically imposing for his age yesterday when he came on the pitch. Then after that, again, got one that was more expected, but still not the player that people were looking for. We had Andy McNeil sign a new contract extension. So he's Robbie Thompson's decided to retire from playing. So firstly, just a few words about Robbie Thompson as well.
Yeah, Robbie obviously is his dad's known so well within the club as well. So I think when we first signed him, everyone was going, well, if he can emulate anything close to what his dad's done, then he'll be a legend. So he had his moments. I mean, he only really had 2, maybe 3 seasons where he was number one, and then obviously we signed the likes of Jamie McDonald. He then went to being sort of in getting his coaching badges, then became the goalie coach / player, and doing the dual role. McGlynn ended up deciding that he would go with McDonald as the number one starting, and that Thompson would step in when needed. And I think Robbie, he seemed very early on that. I think it was quite early on that he realised that he probably wanted to be a coach very early on, and so he ended up having like his own goalie school and everything like that as well. So it didn't surprise me that he's actually hung up his gloves already. And I mean,
Yeah.
I think Kev's going to learn again another season of learning for Robbie, which I've heard he's meant to be a really top goalie coach compared to, like, if you speak to any sort of coaches or hear any interviews, they really rate Robbie high. And I think he clearly, Murray trusts him as well, because you can see him tactically with like boards and with papers and stuff like that on the bench as well, and Murray's talking to him, and so it's clearly not just talking about Kev, he's clearly talking to him about the game in general as well. So I think it's been a good but probably quite a short career in the end of the day for Robbie, but no, I'm happy that he's still there on the coaching staff, and that he'll be helping Kev as best as he can. And then, as you say, Andy McNeil, I think for this level, I think he's a good enough backup. I mean, he had a really good game actually when we were right at the start of the year when we played Ergie. We lost 1-0, but by all, I mean, I was at the game. He pulled off one really good save, but the goal wasn't anything to do with him. It was just unlucky because it came off the post. But I think for him, again, it's a case of he'll probably get maybe one or two maybe group stage games, and then it'll just be whenever Kev needs a rest or if he's injured or whatever. But I think it would have been tough if we had to release him and try and find somebody that's going to be willing to be a backup that's as good. And I think you're probably thinking, right, he's still pretty young, he's still got to learn. And I think at the end of the day, he will learn off of Robbie. So it wouldn't surprise me if we do try and give him a few more games this season, but it will be tough, obviously, if we're competing at the top end of the championship.
Yeah, I think it's a bit more difficult as well because they've changed the Challenge Cup to increase the prize pool, which normally you would sort of say Challenge Cup's going to be ideal for giving game time to lads like that. But now that is £100,000 for the prize money for it, I think clubs at our level will probably be seen that as a good opportunity to sort of build on their sort of prize pool savings and take a bit from that. I'm quite happy with the deal. As you say, I think it's a good player to get back in as a deputy. I think he's still young enough to sort of be quite happy in that role. And I'm sure that over time that he will potentially be, he might in the future look for more game time. But at the moment, he's going to be in really good steadings and good hands with Robbie Thompson coaching him, as well as learning from Big Kev as well. And I think it's good because we've got two goalkeepers that do have that little bit of sort of swagger about them. You can see that with Andy McNeil just in terms of the way that he behaves and how he is. And I know that Ian Murray had sort of touched on in his interview as well with one of the press that he'd sort of said that he thinks really that for Robbie Thompson, he's got him for a certain amount of time because he knows that he's going to be in demand and that there are going to be other clubs looking for him. But I think that with our setup at the moment, he can go off and do his coaching part-time with his goalkeeping school, which is great. And I hope that he goes on to all the success as goalkeeping coach as well, because, again, just it's great to see. And if we can offer that as a club as a sort of starting point for that, then fantastic. Moving swiftly along, we then move on to the signing that everyone had sort of expected, and then everyone sort of had a bit of doubt about because it seemed to it had been done for weeks, but obviously just waiting for it to get over the line. Paul Hanlon comes in, huge experience there at the back line. So yeah, just talk through that one, Paul Hanlon signing for us, Scott.
Yeah, I'm delighted with this one. As you say, it had been rumoured for quite a few weeks. Well, it was first rumoured that apparently the Pars were going to go in for both Lewis and Hanlon. And I'm sorry, Lewis Stevenson was never going to be playing for Dunfermline. It just never was going to happen. Whether he's an ex-teammate of McPake or not, I'm sorry, I don't think you would have ever seen him in the black and white Dunfermline. But and Hanlon, again, I think he's came and seen what the project is, to be honest, and the fact that we've given him a 3-year deal. He's went for the security, and from his interview as well, obviously he was here for, he played in Vonnie's testimonial, and he said that the club looked, just watching on, it looked like a fun place to be and a good place to play your football. So I mean, we're really selling ourselves brilliantly over the last year, and last season, all it does is just put us even more on the map that, yeah, come and play football with us because you're going to enjoy yourself, and it's going to be, well, we've seen, especially the first half of the season, it's one hell of a journey because the amount of roller coaster 90 minutes that we had, especially up until Christmas, was mental. And for health reasons, I hope we don't have so many late goals. But at the end of the day, if it's to get you 3 points, I'm there for it. And Hanlon brings that experience. We've now got 2 Scotland caps in our ranks as well, which I'm pretty certain that there'll not be that in any other championship sides this season. So yeah, really happy with it, and I just hope that it also gives Murray the chance to possibly even an option at back 3 this season, because you've got Fordyce, you've got Murray, you've got Hanlon now. Dicko can play centre half as well, and if that's the case, it means it's probably going to stop taking Scott Brown out of midfield when needed. And yeah, so if that's the case, then I'm all for that as well.
Yeah, we'll come on to that in a little bit. But yeah, you're mentioning there about being a roller coaster. I think Paul Hanlon's going to turn us from nemesis at Alton Towers into the wee tiny apple ride that you see down the Links Market. Hopefully far less of a roller coaster, because I think that he's just a really, really astute signing, just because, again, people will talk about the 3-year deal, and I know that fans at other clubs will probably say, oh, that's a bit long for a player at that age. But nah, I think it's he's going to add so much experience into the team that you can't really knock that back. And then you factor in the number of other clubs that he's turned down to come to us. And I think as well, you see St Johnstone, they bring in a lad like Jack Sanders, is it, from Kilmarnock, who was, like, by all accounts, just a poor centre half for Ayr United at championship level. And we've gone out and signed a player that Hibs fans were, quite a lot of them were desperate to keep Paul Hanlon. They were sort of saying, oh, now David Gray's back and his manager, can we change it up so that we can actually go and try and get him back in a new deal? So yeah, we've obviously had a lot of interest from down in Leaf about these 2 signings, and I think it's just a really positive move for the club. It shows the direction that we're moving in. I know that there's a lot of people that will probably be quite critical of our signings this summer and sort of say, oh, they're all older lads, but again, Freeman's not the oldest. We'll come on to him next. You've got Montague and Gibson in there, so it does balance itself out. So yeah, I'm keen to see how it goes, but we'll come on to Paul Hanlon's performance yesterday, because we'll speak a bit about that in the East Fife game. But yeah, I think that the final signing that we've had before we move on to sort of like tenuous links and paper talk is Kieran Freeman coming in. He'd been over at St Patrick's, I think it was, in Ireland, after Dundee United. What were your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, well, it was clear that it was one of the only positions we actually didn't have a player for coming into the pre-season. So I think it was clear that everybody, all you could see after the Hanlon one, right, now we need a right back and then we're sorted. And that was literally what every comment was. So yeah, it was obviously something that was getting worked on in the background, and Freeman had went over to Ireland. I've spoke to a couple of friends of our family and stuff like that, and who are Dundee United fans, and they said that Freeman was really good in his sort of first sort of few months as a Dundee United player, because he kind of burst into the team and he was this teenager that was getting game time, and it just looked like he was going to be at United for years. He seemed to kind of go downhill for a bit, got an injury and stuff like that, went to Peterhead on loan, and obviously Bruni has played one and will have been able to tell Murray what he's like as well in terms of within the changing room and whatever. But and it wasn't overly long that he was in Ireland for, I don't think, but I don't know if it was maybe John Daly that signed him just purely with the Dundee United link. But yeah, I think it seems like it'll be a slightly more attacking right back as well, which at the end of the day, it's kind of what we asked for, especially if you've got Liam Dick on the other side, who last season he was getting better at going forward, but it's just not his initial thought. His initial thought's to defend first. So if you can get somebody down the other side that is more willing to kind of bomb forward and do overlapping these winger a few times just to give the other fullback that he's up against a bit more to think about, then I think it's a pretty sensible signing. And yeah, I think the Championship as well, he's been playing Premiership with Dundee United, so I think if he's in the Championship, it's probably more his level. So, no, again, it's one that I'm keen to watch play out, and I think that's why we've only given him a 1-year deal, is just to see how he goes. And listen, if he has a really good first 4 months, I could see us then going, right, here's another year.
Yeah, from a player's perspective, I know that 1-year deals have a risk, but at the same time, like if you play so well, you can play yourself into a bigger contract with another club. That's the thing as well. And yeah, again, that's the impression I've had about Kieran Freeman, is that going forward, that he does seem that more sort of aggressive fullback that we sort of lacked towards the latter end of last season. I know that just sort of we did our summary about the players that had left last season, and we didn't even speak about James Brown because he was just very, in the nicest way possible, very, very beige fullback. Did this job reasonably well defensively, but just very little going forward. And I don't think that's really a character assassination of him. I think that's just sort of just the Rovers fans' perspective, because we didn't really see much. So I'm keen to see, because I think that you really want that, especially when you've got a player like Aidan Connolly or Josh Bullen on the wing, just to be able to have that support and to be able to try and get that aggressive wing back overlapping them. And again, it would fit into that sort of idea that potentially we are sitting with a back five with two wing backs. As one of our formations for next season. So, yeah, clearly an opportunity to sort of develop that there. The only other couple of points that I would touch on, firstly, Dylan Corr moved on. He decided that he wasn't going to extend his contract with us, and he's moved on to move to Capello in Greenock Morton. So what did you make of that move?
First of all, I'm glad he's actually managed to keep himself in the Championship, because I was hoping he would sign again, but I can totally see it for his point of view in terms of he needs to be playing football. I think we seen at the end of the season how much he seemed to be enjoying being back in the team and actually getting game time, and then he ended up playing against Ross County. Because Keith Watson going down injured against Partick Thistle. So I think for him it's a really good move. He got a 2-year deal as well, so I think it's a little bit more security for him in terms of knowing that he's got at least a club for the next 2 years. Obviously, we maybe were only going to give him a 1-year deal. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think it's the same situation as Scott McGill. He just needs to go out and start playing games regular at that age. He's at the end of the day, he's not going to improve as quickly as he will playing games. So if he's just sat on the bench, so I can completely see it for his point of view, and fair play to him for managed to get himself a Championship club. And listen, I hope he does well, but obviously just not when he plays against us 4 times this season.
Yeah, that's the same as well. I know Scott McGill got that move over to Dundalk, so he'll join up with Jamie Gullen. So it's great to see them both getting contracts, because they were players that offered their all when they played for us. Again, I think that with Corr, it's an intriguing one in that he would have been basically, fourth choice centre back, because you've got Hanlon ahead of him, Murray ahead of him, and Fordyce, all with far more experience. And I think they're all veterans in terms of Championship football at a minimum. So yeah, it was always going to be tough to sort of say to him, like, you want to come back and sign a new deal when you've got that. I do know there is that aspect, because he's under 23, I think it is, and we've offered him a contract. I'm not sure if we'll get a development fee off the back of it, but even if it is, I think it'll be a quite low sort of 4-figure sum, and probably just a token gesture. But yeah, that was the only other bit of business that we've seen. Other than that, quite an intriguing one in that Gabby McGill's been linked with ourselves, Partick Thistle, and one other team. I can't remember who it was, but I can't remember.
St Johnstone, was it?
Was it St Johnstone, maybe? Aye, St Johnstone. So centre forward, 6 foot tall, was playing with Airdrie before. I think his goal ratio is sort of 1 to every 3 games or something along those lines. What did you make of that one?
I'm not so sure what to think of that one. If I'm honest, he clearly is a grafter, because anytime I seen him against us, he was constantly running, he was harrying defenders, he was chasing basically lost causes every time. And it was almost like Reece McCabe said to him, look, just give me 70 minutes of everything and then I'll take you off. Like every time I've seen him. But I just feel that we need better finishers in that sort of top end of the park, and I just don't think he's quite that sort of top end championship. I think he's a good striker for like a sort of bottom end championship, top end League One. I just don't know if he's going to be quite the cut that we need him to be. If Murray is after him still, but I would be looking elsewhere if it was me. But at the same time, if he does sign for us, it's a kind of wait and see how he gets on. But I don't think he would be a guaranteed starter or anything when you've got the likes of Vaughan and Hamilton already here. Because you can see guys like Callum Smith doesn't even get a game most weeks. So if Callum Smith's not getting in, McGill was playing in that same team with Callum Smith. So they're a very similar standard. So I think he would struggle to probably get into the starting team if he did sign.
Yeah, I'd agree with that statement. I think that, again, I wouldn't write him off completely. I wouldn't be like, why are we signing this player? It's shocking, because I think that, firstly, all players can come in. Callum Smith's a great example of actually what a player that can come in and do a job, where you might be cynical and you might say, oh, really? Is that sort of what we're going for? Because I was probably of a very similar ilk myself last summer, and I got completely proven wrong with that. I'm a huge Callum Smith fan now. So, and also as well, I always think back to the signings of the likes of Brian Graham and Kevin Nisbet. Like, you never know. With some players, it just clicks at a club and it, like, their careers rocket on from there, and then they move forward at an exponential rate. So, yeah, I'd be intrigued to see how it would work out if we do sign Gavin McGill. It would surprise me if we are in the list. And I think he must have a bit about him for him to be linked with those clubs that are at the sort of top end of the Championship, bottom end of the Premier League. And it might just be that he's a very unconventional, unfashionable type player, that you sort of see him as an opposition player and you don't maybe take too much notice, but when he's actually in your squad, you do notice. So I'll maybe reach out to a few Airdrie fans and sort of see what their opinions are on McGill and see what their thoughts are, because certainly, I think that with signings it can be very easy to judge until you actually see them in your own colours and how they fit into your systems and what the manager can do. So yeah, that sort of wraps up the sort of speculation. So I think now we'll just have a quick summary of the East Fife game. I know that you caught the highlights, Scott. I made the new trip along on the railway, which was delightful. It got you along nice and close to the stadium to get you along there. Nice sunny day, as I say. So it was a 0-0 draw. It finished. I've just got the starting 11 here. So we started off with as you sort of touched on, a 3-5-2, or a 5-3-2 even, and it's sort of two wing backs. So you had Big Kevin goals, Liam Dick and Ross Matthews were the wing backs in the first half. For Dice, Murray and Brown sort of played along the back line. Scott Brown obviously stepping out a bit more. You had Josh Mullen, Aidan Connolly in there as well as Dylan Easton and Jack Hamilton going forward. So we made wholesale changes at half-time and brought on all the other remaining signings that we've had in. The only other non-official signing that we've had was Jake Nicholson, who's been part of the Community Foundation, I believe, who didn't get on the pitch along with Callum Hanna. So, yeah, just firstly, what were your thoughts sort of going through the highlights just on the first half? What did you make of that?
Well, from the highlights, obviously, there wasn't too much actually in the first half. It seemed to be a bit kind of just your typical pre-season. There's obviously teams are wanting a bit of possession, try and work out different systems, and obviously getting fitness is also pretty high up in the list right now, especially for us, considering it's only our first week back in training, whereas I think East Fife might have been back in already a week before. So when it comes to that, you're just trying to get as much minutes into guys as you can, and I think it as it is, it's just about working out different ways of playing, and also trying to get the new guys familiar with the guys that already know how we play. It's just all a mix of everything, really. So to be honest, if we'd lost, like, obviously the Pars went and lost 2-0 to East Fife on Friday night. If we'd also lost yesterday, listen, it's pre-season, it would have just been a case that Murray would have said the exact same. The guys have been in for a week and we've been trying to just work on their fitness this week. We'll start worrying about it when it gets to like so the Inverness game next weekend, then into the League Cup obviously as well.
Yeah, I think for me, I always look back to the Falkirk game that we had under John McGlynn, first season after we got promoted, and we got scalped 6-2, and their fans were like laughing it up, saying that the wrong team had been promoted. And then by the end of that season, they'd been finished the 5th place or something stupid like that, and we'd just a ball hair away from 2nd place finish above Dundee, who'd spent a lot of money to get there. So yeah, you can't really look into these results too much. In the first half, I felt that we really struggled to break down a very, very well organised East Fife side. Who again, they certainly wouldn't want to see any sort of embarrassment, given it was Pat Slattery's testimonial, which is great to see. 10 years of service for a player at that level, and yeah, just a very. You think that the majority of the players that had been on that pitch during the first half, they'd only finished up 4 weeks ago. They've barely had a break, so I think the fitness is going to be probably still there to a decent degree. Naturally, I think that footballers nowadays keep themselves so fit, even at our level, that it's not going to be the same as before, where you get people coming back ridiculously overweight. But yeah, I think that again, with pre-season, you're always going to get players that it's never a full exertion, and you don't really want it to be that. I know that in his post-match interview, Davey said it's a bit of a trite statement to say it's just about fitness. But see, for me, I genuinely do think that it's just about fitness and getting players organised. I couldn't care less if they have a stinking game in pre-season. It's all about when the League Cup starts and getting through into that second round for me. Some people take it a lot more seriously than others, as I heard from comments yesterday. There was a few people that were quite upset at some of the players. But again, I'm not going to be that person that's getting too overly bothered if passes are going astray or things are flying out, because at the end of the day, you take it a bit more relaxed. Second half, we really made the wholesale changes, bringing on the likes of Stevenson, Hanlon, Lewis Gibson came on from the start of the second half. We had Freeman on as well. So yeah, just seemed to be a bit more free flowing in the second half. So did you see what did you see from that?
Yeah, I think from obviously the few minutes of the highlights that I did see, it did look like we created a bit more in the second half. We actually looked like we were sort of breaking them down. Like you say, East Fife did look pretty organised, and a team that had kind of. I don't think they've made too many signings this season. They've kind of kept a hold quite a few guys. So at the end of the day, if they've got quite a lot of guys that are still together, then they'll know like their systems and they'll know how they want to play. So to be going in the second half, especially with pretty much more than half the team was new players and new signings, then yeah, it's going to take time. And no, it was good to see them all get 45 minutes. And from what I've heard and what I've seen in the highlights, that Lewis Gibson really started to catch the eye of quite a few of the fans, and he was kind of showing his endeavour and the sort of player that he could end up being. He looked quite fast and sort of skillful from what I've seen. So yeah, no, I was as you've just said. Like at the end of the day, it's if we'd got beat yesterday, I wouldn't have cared. It's not going to matter the now. But I would say this time next week, once we've played Inverness, I'd like to see us a little bit more. As you say, the fitness element will get better and better. But I think when it comes to systems and playing guys in positions where you think they're going to play for the rest of the season, I would like to start to see a bit more patterns of play come this time next week, and they've had another week of training, and it'll still keep building through the League Cup group stages as well. But I still think that with these new guys, it'll take them a couple of weeks at least to understand how Murray wants us to set up and play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, 3 players really jumped out in that second half. So firstly, as you touched on, Lewis Gibson, he looked a real prospect in terms of just his willingness to get on the ball. He linked up really well in the start of the second half. So Ian Murray switched on wings, him and Aidan Connolly at different points, and he was Lewis Gibson at the start of the second half, linking up really, really well with Lewis Stevenson. So just giving goes and basically getting beyond the sort of sizing up the fullback, who, to be fair, put in a really good job. And Gibson maybe struggled to get the clearest of balls in, but again, it's just great to see him getting in that position, and it's not going to be a criticism that in your first game back that you're not creating all these opportunities or getting shots on goal. And speaking of, Lewis Stevenson just looked exceptional. Really, really good nick. There was a moment where you could just sort of see his experience shine through, where there was a ball that he put across where one of the first touches he gets past his man and a player comes across to cover, but as the player's coming across to cover, you'd expect maybe a player to take an extra touch and then hit it into the box. Stevenson didn't bother with that. He just got it straight across, and then just unfortunately that there was no one there to connect with it. So yeah, I thought that Stevenson looks like he'll be a real asset as a wing back, and I think that at our level he will be very, very positive signing for the club. And then as well, his partner in crime, Paul Hanlon, just looks really, really assured. No nonsense, him and Callum Fordyce at the back during that second half. The two of them, Fordyce obviously played the lion's share of the game, but yeah, with Hanlon, they had a few class touches just to take the ball past players. I think the club have just literally put out a tweet just now to sort of highlight one of them because it was that good. And you just think that, yeah, it's we've got I think the key failing from last season was our defence, in the sense that we were relying on Scott Brown at the back a lot. And you just think that is no longer the case, because we've just signed two centre-backs that are veterans in terms of where they're at, and they've got so much experience that we shouldn't be having Scott Brown in defence this season, which in turn allows Scott Brown to play in a better position where he's further up the pitch. So I think that when you see situations like the last time that we went up to Tannadice, where the ball came into the box and Scott Brown got bullied a bit by Louis Moat, who was then able to set up Tony Watt in the first goal, you can't see that happening this season. Yeah, I'm very, very confident that that's a problem that we can now sort of look at, even this early stage, and sort of say it's fixed, and we should be looking for a lot more on that front this season.
Fingers crossed that we sort out Connor.
On the other side, Kieran Freeman. Aye, that's another point as well. That's another point. There's folk already grumbling away about leaving a man back for a corner, and East Fife weren't doing that. But I think on the other side, Kieran Freeman got forward very, very, very well in terms of the attacking presence, and he had a few moments where he was able to get past his man and get sort of into the final third and cut balls back. I would agree that I do think that we're potentially a striker short, and whether that's McGill or someone else, then time will tell. But at least one, if not two, sort of forward short. But again, that John Potter and Ian Murray, we talk on here, we know absolutely nothing about football. We come on and we are spouting off this and that and what they should do and what they shouldn't do, when we've got, they know more in their fingertips than we do in our heads. So it's just one of these things. As a fan, you've got to keep that in mind, and you've got to just be realistic about where you're at. And as you say, you want to see more over the next few games, but I'm very confident that by the League Cup that we'll be able to sort of, if we protect players, I know that Sam Stanton and Lewis Vaughan didn't make appearances yesterday, and that there'll be reasons for that in terms of protecting the players, but I'm confident that come the League Cup we'll be able to start in a positive light. And this is the first season that I can really remember where we've started with a full squad to choose from. We've always came back and we've always had to sort of shoehorn people in somewhere, whereas this seems to be that we've got a full squad to choose from, outside of maybe Stanton and Vaughan, who are maybe just needing that little bit of extra protection just given the circumstances. So yeah, overall there was very few moments. East Fife had the ball on the back of the net twice, a couple of offside goals which I think were fairly disallowed. Scott Brown and Jack Hamilton probably had the best chances for us. Jack Hamilton in the first half had a free header that he just couldn't get on target, or he got on target but could have potentially put to either side of the goalkeeper, but I'm not going to look too much into that. And then Scott Brown, their keeper, rushed out at one point, and Scott Brown had a shot on target that was deflected or cleared off basically away from the goal by a solid clearance at the centre back, and then right at the end, Big Kev comes up clutch with a really, really good save down to his left hand post to sort of keep the game even. So yeah, relatively few talking points out of that game, but I'm keen to see what happens with the Montrose game. I'd like to see the younger lads get maybe a bit more game time than that, the likes of Callum Hanna, Lewis Gibson, Kai Montague, get them a bit more bled in and experienced into it. And then on top of that, you've got the Cali game, which will be next Saturday, where I think the entry price is only £5. So if you can get along to that, hopefully it'll be a nice wee afternoon out. Any other thoughts other than that, Scott?
Obviously, just a few days ago, we got the fixtures came out as well, and I think when you look at that, it's our arch enemy's first game up, Energy. So I think it'll be interesting to see. Although it'll be a very new look, Energy, because they've lost quite a lot of that squad, which was always going to happen. Energy were never going to keep that squad together, considering how well they did first season back. McCabe had them playing really good football. It was just going to be inevitable that at least 5 or 6 of them were going to leave that team and go either to a higher standard or at least just to another team in the Championship that can maybe offer a bit more money and more security in terms of a full-time contract. Because I'm led to believe that Energy weren't fully, I think they were kind of hybrid last season. So I'm not sure how that's going to go for them this season.
Callum Gallagher was the only player that I think was part-time that was left in that squad, and he's away. So I think that they'll be fully full-time now. So I don't think that'll be too much of an issue. I did notice quite a few of their fans are quite chippy on social media, as they have no doubt they should be. I think we'd probably be the same with Dunfermline, where you've won a few games against a team and you're like, oh, that's a nice easy way to start the season with a win, much in the same way that I'm saying that we've killed the Fife Derby because they've not put on that New Year. So obviously they've taken Dunfermline so much for a ride the last recent while.
It's disappointing that we've not
disappointing. You always look forward.
For people like myself, like that come home at Christmas time to see the family and stuff like that, you're usually always guaranteed a derby game at New Year, and unfortunately it's not going to be the case this season. But again, we've got them fairly early. I think it's like the 5th game of the season we've got them at East End, so at least we're not having to wait too long to hopefully get another 3 points against them. But and then again we've got Livy quite early on as well. I think the week before or a couple of weeks before we've got the Pars, so it'll be good to have a right good look at Livy very early on, because right now, as we did in our draft thing during the week, nobody has a clue what Livy are going to be like this season. Like I don't even think Livy fans could tell you how they're going to do. They've got such a mixed squad of signing guys in Northern Ireland in the Premiership over there, and a mix of, they've kept a few bodies the last season, but not a lot. And then also just signing young lads that nobody's heard of. So they are going to be very much a wait and see sort of team. I don't know. It'll be bold if somebody says it, or they'll go and win the league, because I couldn't tell you where they're going to finish this season.
Yeah, I think that even with the money that they've got in for the likes of parachute payments and with UEFA solidarity money, I don't think Livy have really done that much with it. They think that they've looked at the games that they've had against Championship clubs last season where they've came out on top, and they're sort of saying, well, we'll still retain a fair number of our players. I'm not sure. But our first 5 fixtures, you look at it, you've got Airdrie away, Partick at home, Ayr away, I think it is, and then Livy at home before going on a derby against Dunfermline. If you have a positive start in that, you're setting yourself up very, very nicely. And I think that we should go in with every bit of confidence in terms of those games and those fixtures, especially if we can get a positive result like we've done a lot of the time against Partick in recent years. We've got a very good record against them. I know that playoff game will count as a loss, but still, let's be honest, nobody was feeling like that was a loss at the end of that game. So yeah, I think that if we can go in with a degree of positivity there, start off the season well, there's no reason that we can't kick on and we can't get a similar points total to what we did last season, which would mean promotion. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think you're going to get two teams that are putting up the same level of battle. I think for Rovers this season, in terms of prediction, I think that we'll have a lot more. I think that we'll have a lot more games where we're clear-cut winners, but also as well, I don't think there will be as many tight games just in general for us. But we'll see how we do. Any predictions for you, Scott? Or are you not stepping into that realm?
To be fair, I've stopped calling it predictions. It's just guessing. Like at championship level, nobody can tell how mental the league's going to be. I mean, you're seeing like even Ayr this season look like they'll be a little bit better than they were last year, in teams like that. So I think it's going to be an extremely tight league again, and I think we might get a clearer picture come the first day of the season once, because everyone's still to make a few sign-ins. We'll see how people are playing in the group stage, see like are any of their new players doing anything, or are they kind of keeping with the old guard or whatever. So including ourselves as well, are we going to ring the changes early, or are we going to stick with the guys that done us good last season? It'll be interesting to see how everybody does, but I think when it comes to like a prediction / guess, I'll probably do it once we've completed the League Cup, at least.
Well, if we win the league at Hampden again on the 2nd of May, like the last time that we played at Hampden on the 2nd of May, I would 100% take that, even if it was a bit nerve-wracking. But time will tell, and I think that as Rovers fans, every reason to be optimistic. The season ticket sales have gone very, very well so far. So hopefully we can, I know that we're on the cusp of hitting that 2,000 mark, so hopefully we can push on there, and there's obviously different options that are available. Stuff like player sponsorship and things is up now as well from the club. I know that we as a group are looking towards player sponsorship, so we'll have an update about who we're doing and sort of what we're doing on that front. But in the meantime, we will be back very, very shortly. With pre-season games, obviously, we'll probably be a bit more lax with them. I know that we've got a few ideas for podcast episodes. We are going to have another longer form interview that's been done by John Greer with another former player through the Reminiscing Raith sessions. Those have been set up with the Community Foundation. So we will have another one of those up in due course. But in the meantime, just want to thank you all for listening. As ever, we can be found on Twitter, Instagram, which is run by Carol. We've got the Etsy shop done by Blair. All of the details can be found in the link tree that you've probably posted to you. But yeah, thanks for taking the time to listen, and we will see you very, very shortly. Bye for now.